Come crochet Call the Orca with me. I'm Lindsay with Off the Beaten Hook, and this video is a supplement to my written pattern for Call the Orca, so check the description box and go grab your free copy of the written pattern, grab your yarn, your hooks, and let's get hooking. At this point, we're coming in at the bullet phase. So basically this little guy just looks like a bullet. The top is where you have your eyes spaced by 23 stitches over the top. Okay, so we have reached the point where we are going to split for the tail, and I wanted to show you how to do this. So you've just completed the round where you have increased to kind of flare the tail out. So this is round 68 and I have 24 stitches around. And what's going to happen is you're going to do half of this in black and half of this in white. So the upper portion is going to be crocheted in rows in black to make the top part of the tail. And then the bottom is going to be the exact same pattern but done in white. And then you're going to stitch them together for a flat tail. So what you want to do is finding the center based on your eyes. You're going to split that last round of 24 stitches in half so that each of those two halves of the tail, the white portion and the black portion, will have 12 stitches to begin with. Since this last round does have to be centered just right, you may have to give or take a few stitches from this last round that you did to make sure that your crochet hook is positioned so that you can begin the first round of the tail with white and you can begin cleanly. So I wanted to show you where mine ended up. Yours might look a little bit differently, but it's so hard to see in the black. I'm so sorry, but mine ended up with this final increase. So these last two stitches of my round 68 are going to end up being white. So I want to try to explain that a little bit so that's not confusing, because basically what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to back out those last two stitches so that I can make sure that my white portion of the tail starts exactly lined where I want it to be lined up based on the eyes. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to show you. So I'm going to bring in my white. So basically this last, where the green is, represents where my white is going to begin, and this green is where my white is going to end to begin that first portion of the bottom part of the tail. So again, the end of my round 68 ended right here, and then I went back and I put in my stitch markers to see where my tail was going to begin, and my green ended up being like, oh, that has to be white right there. So I'm going to take out that last increase. So I'm taking out those last two stitches. Okay, so I'm going to replace those in white right now. Okay, I'll tighten that up in a minute. So now I am again over here. These are technically the last two stitches. I'm making a single crochet increase right here. These are technically the last two stitches of round 68. So I'm back to 24 stitches around. I just had to replace those in white because that's half of my tail. 12 black coming over the top, and I've got 12 coming under the bottom, but I had to replace those last two in white. I'm going to continue my pattern for the tail, so I'll get you started off here. So I am going to, now I'm just going to remove this one since this is just my first stitch of white. I don't really need to track that. And I'm going to complete all the way over to my other stitch marker there, single crochets in white. And this will be my row 1 of the tail, the white portion of it. Okay, so I'm taking my green stitch marker out. This will be the last stitch of the white row 1 of the tail. Okay, so right now I should have 12 white stitches, and then these purple ones are marking the black. This is row 1 for the tail. So again, we're going to start working in turning rows. So at the end of each row, you're going to chain 1 and turn. So I'm chaining 1, I'm going to turn, and I'm going to start working this direction back along the white. So for row 2, what we're going to do is we're going to start increasing so that we can flare this tail out. So the beginning stitch and the last stitch will be an increase. So I'm going to place an increase in my very first white stitch there. So 2 single crochets in that same stitch. And then I'm going to single crochet across all the way up to the very last stitch of my white here. And then I'll place another increase in the last white. So this is going to be 10 stitches across, just 1 single crochet in each stitch. Okay, so this is my last white single crochet. I'm going to increase in that stitch. Okay, so for row 2 of the tail, you're going to end up with 14 stitches, okay? So now we are going to chain 1 and turn again, and we're going to continue flaring that out by making an increase in that first stitch and that last stitch. So for row 3 of the tail, we're going to place an increase in this first stitch. Then we're going to single crochet all the way, just 1 in each of those stitches, all the way to this last stitch, and then we'll increase in that one. All right, so for my last stitch of that row, I'm going to place a single crochet increase. All right, so that is row 3 of the tail. I'm going to chain 1 and turn. All right, we're going to increase again. So in the first and last stitch, I'm going to place a single crochet increase. All right, so there's my increase, and now I'm going to single crochet 1 in each stitch across up till the very last stitch, and then I'll place an increase. All right, I am at my last stitch of the row, so I'm going to increase in that row. Okay, so just to check in, this is at the end of row 4 of the tail, and you should have 18 stitches across. Okay, so go ahead and chain 1 and turn, and you're going to do that same method for rows 5 and 6. You're going to be increasing in the first stitch and the last stitch. So I'll go ahead and let you do those 2 more rows, and then I'll meet you at row 7 and show you how we are going to kind of split and start shaping the tail at that point. All right, we are now at the end of row 6. So you're going to have 22 single crochet stitches across, and I'm going to show you how to handle this next part for the shaping of the tail. We are going to chain 1 and turn. Just like we have been, we're going to go ahead and increase in the very first stitch of row 8 here. And now we are going to single crochet 1 single crochet in the next 10 stitches, which is going to bring us to the middle of this row. All right, 10. Okay, so that's going to bring us to the halfway point on this white part of the tail. We're going to chain 1 and turn. Okay, now as we continue to shape, we are going to decrease over the first 2 stitches of row 8. So you're going to do a single crochet decrease. And now we're going to single crochet in the next 9. All right, so those 9 single crochets are going to bring you 1 short of the last stitch of the row, and you're going to place an increase in that last stitch. All right, so at the end of row 8, you're going to have 12 stitches going across. All right, so begin row 9. you are going to turn your work. You're not going to chain at the end of this one because we're actually going to chain several to begin row 9. So to begin row 9, we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Place a single crochet in the back bump of that second chain from the hook and in the next 2 back bumps, which will bring you back down that entire chain. So you'll have 3 single crochet made. And now what you're going to do is you are going to single crochet in the next 10 along this tail. And what that will do is it'll bring you all the way up to the final 2 stitches of this row where you will place a decrease. So go ahead and place 10 single crochet all along the top of this row. All right, this is number 10, and then I am going to decrease over the last 2 stitches of this row. All right, so I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to make a little border of 3 single crochet to bring me back down this edge so I can slip stitch in the middle and repeat this 3 rows of shaping on this side. So I chain 1 and I'm going to place 3 single crochet. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to slip stitch to that same stitch that you began this first row of this little shaping over here. Use that same stitch to place your slip stitch so you can kind of end that side and fasten off. All right, so I'm going to snip. And pull that through and just pull that tight, and that is your first side of the underside of the tail. So now what you're going to do is these last 3 rows, you're going to repeat those on this side. So you want to start from the outside going in. So I'm going to turn and I'm going to rejoin my yarn in this stitch right here, and I'm going to repeat those last 3 rows on this end going in, and then I'm going to fasten off in the middle. There you have the shaped tail. So this is the first half of the tail. This is the white portion. What you're going to do is repeat that entire part of the tail with black. So I'm going to rejoin right here with this right side facing out. I'm going to rejoin in the very first black stitch right there. And I'm going to make this exact same pattern going across this black portion. So you'll have 2 flappy parts of the tail, and then with the black we'll rejoin and we will do a single crochet border all the way around with the black side on top. So I will see you at that point. All right, here's what it's going to look like when you are done with both of the sides of the tail. So you got your white side, your black side on top. I didn't fuss with the ends too much. I just brought them all to the inside and kind of just weaved them under a stitch or 2 and snipped them off because I knew those were going to get sewn on the inside. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to bring in a handful of stitch markers, and I'm going to just take this tail and take these 2 sides, and I'm going to pin them together just to make sure I have all of the stitches and the rows perfectly matched up, and that will make my seaming along the outside or the crocheting them together go a lot quicker if I already just go through and make sure I have everything lined up perfectly. So I'm going to do that now. I've got my two sides stitch marked together, perfectly aligned. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to start by adding my black yarn. I'm going to rejoin in this very first row that you made on the tail. And I'm going to use black yarn. I'm going to start on the top, and I am going to place one single crochet at the end of each of these rows that I did of the tail, all the way around to the top. And then I'm going to single crochet each of these aligned stitches together along the top, down the 3 to the middle, up the 3 to this side, and the same thing along there. And then I'm going to tie off and bring the yarn to the inside on this side of the tail. All right, y'all, I have made it to my last stitch of joining these pieces of the tail. Woo! That was a little bit of a labor of love for me. I am sweating here. Okay. Good thing I'm gonna do that in fast forward and not have my voice speaking, because I had a few expletives there. Okay, so I am going to just take that end and I'm going to weave it in a couple times underneath this last little, wherever on this black part, and bring my needle to the inside and snip it clean with the surface. But there you have the beautiful tail complete. So let's look at this guy. There he is, looking a little more like an orca, a little less like a bullet. I elected to do the back stitch to sew on this white part of the belly because it just gives it a really nice clean edge and you don't see the black or the white stitches mixing together at all. If you're more of a fan of just doing the whip stitch, you can certainly do that, where you're picking up one loop from the whale body and then coming through both loops of the edge of the white underbelly and just doing that all the way around. That can look really nice too. I'm going to show you how I do the back stitch for this guy, just in case you are wanting to give that one a try. I don't use it on most of my amigurumis, but this is a big kind of sewing project, and I don't know, I just felt like it looked better. I tried all the different kinds, and this is the one I decided to go with. All right, so let me give you an idea of how I do this. So I've already started back stitching all the way around here, and you can see the nice clean edge that it gives. And what you're going to do is I'm going to take my tapestry needle, and I've just pulled it up and out through this stitch right here. And instead of continuing to go forward through these, I'm going to bring it back over under these two loops of the stitch right before. Okay, and then underneath I'm going to snatch some black yarn. I'm going to grab a loop of black yarn from behind. So I'm picking up a loop of the black from behind, and then I'm going to bring my needle up underneath both loops of this next stitch. Okay, so this is where I began. I went back underneath the stitch right previous to it, picked up some black, and I came up the next stitch after this one. Okay, and I'll show you what that's going to look like. So pull that through. And it creates that little, it's creating this little bar underneath the stitch. Right there, and it just makes a really nice clean edge. Okay, so I'll show you that again. So again, coming up this one, so I'm going to bring my needle backwards underneath both loops of this previous stitch. Underneath, grab some of the black yarn that you're sewing it down onto. Grab a loop from behind. Okay, oops, I got some stuffing there with it. And then up underneath both loops of this next stitch, pull it through. And you're just going to continue in that way all the way around.